Ferrari fans might want to shut their ears for the next 10 minutes, I'm afraid, because we are going to move on to what was a disastrous race for them. I think we can all agree that last weekend, despite that they didn't have the pace, they were able to at least salvage a decent result, with Leclerc finishing P2 and Vettel, after an incident, did at least come home for 1 point. This time around, with upgrades rushed onto the car, they didn't do much better. One of their cars didn't make Q3 for the second consecutive weekend, and in the race itself, they lasted all of about one lap. Leclerc did eventually go back out, but he only lasted about 3 laps in the end. No points whatsoever. Sam, pretty disastrous. Where do Ferrari go from here?
I can't remember the last time we've seen a team fall apart like this. How has every other team seemed to progress throughout this winter and COVID break? Every other team has solidified in what they achieved last season, probably apart from Haas, I would say, have come into this new season and their car seems to be improved. They seem to be more competitive. And yet Ferrari, the team that earn the most money from the sport, the team that have the most money coming in from sponsorships, the team that have the most money after points are giving out regardless, and the team that spend the most money in the sport, how are they languishing so badly towards the bottom of this points table? They are, struggling in the midfield, and they can't even beat a lot of the midfield teams now that have got such a smaller budget and drivers with such little experience in comparison to the likes of Vettel and now Leclerc, who is a race winner. Ferrari are crumbling, and I think there needs to almost be, like what McLaren have done, a total strip back, change absolutely everything, refresh things and build it from the ground up. And if that means someone like Binotto has to step down and they need to bring in someone completely different, I'm not against that. And you know what, Ferrari? Maybe, I get that you're passionate, I get that you love that you're from Italy, but maybe not just hiring Italian people to run your team, and look at the whole pool of strategists, engineers, people that have got experience within the sport, because I think you're limiting yourselves. You seem to always pick from the same roster of people, and it is not working for you. You're not growing, you're not going anywhere, and you are falling further and further and further back from Mercedes and Red Bull, who have continued to progress throughout the last era of Formula One. And after accusations of cheating throughout last year and a little quiet word by the FIA in the winter, you seem to be nowhere, and it's a little bit embarrassing for a team that spends as much money as they do and has as much resource as they do to be struggling this much. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a total shake-up at the top levels for Ferrari very soon if they have a couple of poorer races like they've had this current season.
Yeah, and I don't know about the point on the Italians versus international. Obviously the Italians know a lot about motorsport, but just to press on the point, really, Ferrari's most successful era, masterminded by Jean Todt, Ross Brawn, and Rory Byrne. So who knows? Maybe there is something in that. And we will move on to Binotto and whether his position is in doubt in a little bit. Harry, terrible weekend for Ferrari. Do they just need to hope for the absolute best with the rest of these upgrades coming next week?
Yeah, I mean, the incident itself, Sam said it already, it was clumsy from Leclerc's perspective, but they lost an entire race worth of data for these new upgrades, so now they've got to wait another week before they really know if it's going to help them in the race. So, it's just double disaster. I don't think the upgrades looked like they were going to send them straight to the front anyway. It weren't particularly great in qualifying. It's almost like maybe right off this year, but then next year's car is going to be pretty similar anyway, so they've just got to keep developing it, I guess, and just maybe hope for some more crazy races, because they're not going to get to the front on outright pace at the moment, it seems. I mean, I know we all joke about Ferrari, but it's Ferrari. They still should be at the front. We want to see them at the front fighting. It's where they belong. And it's kind of becoming like they were pre-Schumacher era, where they were just breaking down, didn't have a quick car. Not good times for the Italian team.
No, not good at all. And I think more than anything, it's the fact that they rushed these upgrades and they weren't able to test them whatsoever in race conditions. Even if Leclerc and Vettel had come together on lap 1, but it had resulted in absolutely no damage for either car, even if they were half a minute away from everyone else. That still gives them a combined 140 laps to try and work out what's going right with these new upgrades, what still needs to be improved. Have they worked? But they're essentially, that's just been delayed by a week, and they're going to have to work that out in Hungary. I'd like to see what they're going to bring at Hungary. I'm not overly optimistic that this is going to be a game changer, but I think we at least need to give them a week to see what that can do, because even if it isn't the immediate spark that gets them up with even Red Bull, let alone Mercedes, as long as it's them heading in the right direction, that gives them something to work with. We know that they completely radicalized their car, that they are going for something completely different to what they had in Barcelona. They understood at that point that the car just would not be able to be developed down the right path for them. And yeah, the fact that next year's cars are basically going to be this year's cars is a massive effect. So as long as they're going down the right path, that gives them something to work with. But it is very worrying, and the incident itself was clumsy. We praised Leclerc last week because he made something of nothing. That car was not supposed to be second place, and yet he managed to drag it all the way there. And they needed a similar result this week. Again, damage limitation, and they weren't able to do that. Even if they'd walked away with even 8th and 9th, that's something. And yeah, now they're looking at Racing Point, who were able to cut through the field at ease, it seems. Renault put together a better race, at least. Ocon obviously was premature, but Ricciardo put together a good race. Norris and Sainz look pretty decent, so they can't afford to lose too many points to these guys. Teams that we're accustomed to see them beating, but you don't have a whole lot of confidence in them at the moment. But let's see what happens next week. Harry, what's your thoughts on Binotto? Do they need to consider his position?
Yeah, well, I think that could well happen. We've seen how Arriva Bene got kicked, Stefano Domenicali. And I don't think he even deserved to go at that point. I think it could well be. And Binotto he's an engine man. That's where he came from. And maybe just leading a team is not for him. He did well. Yeah, we won't talk about the engines on here, but the engines were strong, whether that's legally or not. But yeah, maybe he's just not cut out to be a team leader. In the past couple of years where he's led Ferrari, it's not been fantastic. They picked up a couple of wins last year, but they weren't championship challenging, and this is even worse. Yeah, it's difficult because you sometimes just lopping off the head of the chicken, to be a bit disgusting, doesn't make it any better. But something needs to change in Ferrari, and who they replace him with, I don't know. And like Sam says, maybe they need to look outside the Italian pool of talent. I mean, they've got Jacques Clear in Ferrari. He's been at Williams and BAR and stuff, and Mercedes. But yeah, maybe they just need to invest outside. I saw Mark Webber's comments about they should be based in England. I mean, that's not realistic. But yeah, just expand their horizons slightly, because they did very well when they had a Frenchman in charge and some British engineers behind them. So yeah, I don't think Mattia will be fired, but they'll definitely be looking at it.
Yeah, and I don't think he should be fired just for the sake of it. And this is something I'm fairly critical of in all sports, actually, where something's not going right, and immediately, you just fire the top guy, and you imagine everything will go back to normal and you'll improve. Sometimes it works that way, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the problems run a lot deeper than just one person at the top of the organisation. Not to say I think he should or shouldn't be fired, but they should definitely look into it before making a rash decision. There's a reason they appointed him in the first place. Maybe that's not been materialised, but there is a reason they put him there, and they just need to find out whether the goals that they have within the team are achievable with him at the helm. I do like Binotto, and I have always advocated for him. I think it was the right decision to put him in that spot. As soon as the news was out that Arriva Bene was in trouble, the first name I went for was Binotto. And that move away from I don't want to say a marketing guy, but Arriva Bene has much more of a commercial and management background, whereas Binotto, of course, has been in the trenches for years, and he's become embedded into that Ferrari team. And I thought someone in his role, someone like him, was the right way to go. It's not working at the moment. Doesn't necessarily mean it can't work long term. Sam, do you think it can work with him? Do you think that they need to maybe go back down the Arriva Bene route?
See, the thing is, and this is why I spoke about opening their pool of talent a little wider, it's not because Italians can't do it. It's just at Ferrari currently, and this is where I think the real issue lies, the culture is toxic. It is a negative, blame-related culture. Vettel handling of that relationship was terrible. There's an open fallout there in the public eye. That's not gone well, and you've now ruined relationships with a four-time world champion. Vettel no longer cares whether you do well or don't do well. He just wants to look for himself. You've got a young, incredibly talented driver that, if you're not careful, you could sully the reputation of, or you could end up causing to lose a good few fans, and that is support in the future as well. And the Italian fan base around Ferrari is incredible, right? They're one of the greatest fan bases of any sport in the world. They're so passionate, and it's incredible to see. But because of that fan base, and because of the historic element that Ferrari has embedded in Ferrari, they're so narrow-focused on this Ferrari is best, Ferrari must always do this, and it's not working for them. And they need a culture change. It needs to be more open-minded, aware, accepting, and forward-thinking. And if Binotto can come around and go, you know what, we need to change what's going on here because Ferrari have been on a downward slope since Schumacher left, then if he can change that around, there's every chance that he could be the guy. And I'm not saying he should be out that door because of this result. Everyone should be given time to do their job. He's clearly an incredibly smart guy. He's very talented. If he can rally the troops, if he can turn things around, if he can advocate to the fans and the stakeholders of Ferrari that we need to do things differently, look at Mercedes, look at Red Bull, look at what they're doing as a team, as a unison, I think that they could become once again the greatest team in the sport. I just think they need to have a more open-minded approach because it's so negative currently. And the moment something goes wrong, it's fingers pointed. It's not, when Hamilton has a bad race, we go in as a team, we work it out as a team, I stay behind at the race and I sit with my engineers and I sort things out and we work as a team, we win as a team. Still we rise is his catchphrase. Where is that at Ferrari? I don't see that. I don't see that unison at Ferrari. Max Verstappen, for all his faults and maybe his personality traits that people don't like, he commends his team, he works hard with his team and he puts the effort in with his team. I don't see that happening currently at Ferrari. It seems very me, very blame, and I think that a culture change, as we've seen at the likes of McLaren, which is working brilliantly. They had a whole new driver lineup 2 seasons ago, and it's working fantastically well for them. Something concrete needs to change at Ferrari. Binotto could do it, and I'd love it if he did. It would be a great redemption story for Ferrari. I'm not certain, but it could happen, and I'd love to see them try and change it.